All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a modern fable that hits pretty close to home for a lot of us. We're talking about the heavy, often invisible weight of negative self-talk. You know, that thing we all struggle with behind closed doors? But listen, we aren't just going to sit around and talk about the problem. We're breaking down a highly structured five-step playbook to totally rewire that internal narrative. So get ready to completely reframe how you look at your own mind. To kick things off, I want you to imagine a slightly unsettling scenario. Picture standing in front of a massive glass mirror. But here's the catch. It doesn't show your face, your clothes, or how you're standing. Instead, it flashes the exact uncensored words you secretly whisper to yourself every single day. Crazy, right? Would you be okay showing that reflection to the world? Or would it reveal an inner critic you would absolutely never tolerate from a friend? So let's start with Section 1, the trap of comparison, and dive into Maya's story in Oakhaven. Our story drops us right into the vibrant town of Oakhaven with a young student named Maya. Maya was the kind of kid who always claimed the desk at the very back of the classroom. She'd have her sketchbook open to a completely blank page, just absolutely terrified to make a mark. And it makes sense when you look at who she was surrounded by. She felt totally invisible next to kids like Leo, the natural charismatic leader, Priya, who cracked complex equations like they were nothing, and Sam, who could turn literally any mundane event into this captivating theatrical story. Maya would look at her own work, focus only on the flaws, and just quietly whisper to herself, "I'm just not remarkable." And then she'd snap her sketchbook shut before anyone could even catch a glimpse of her potential. Which brings us to Section 2, the Mirror of Echoes, where Maya faces the gallery. The real turning point happens when Maya's art and literature teacher, Mr. Julian, takes the class on this very special field trip. They head deep into the town's ancient stone archive, down into a quiet, hushed room called the Gallery of Echoes. And hanging right in the center of this space was a massive polished brass frame. But it didn't hold normal glass. The surface was still and almost cloud-like. Mr. Julian turns to the kids and explains exactly what this artifact is. He tells them it does not show what you look like on the outside. It reflects the truth of how you treat yourself. Literally, a mirror for the mind. Now watch how this plays out, because the results were pretty fascinating. Leo, the natural leader we talked about, confidently steps up first with this big grin. The mirror ripples and bam, it shows a bright, sturdy light of confidence, which is exactly what everyone expected, right? But here's the catch. It also revealed these small, distinct cracks near the top of that light. Mr. Julian explained that sure, the light was his genuine confidence, but those cracks, they represented the immense hidden pressure Leo put on himself to be absolutely perfect, all the time. Then, it was Maya's turn. Hesitant, super anxious, she steps forward. And the mirror did not show a bright light for her. Actually, it immediately went dim, shadowy, and just felt cold. And it gets worse. It physically leaked her own internal whispers right into the quiet room for everyone to hear. Not good enough. Everyone else is better, don't bother trying. You can imagine the vibe. The entire class just fell completely silent while Maya looked down, her cheeks burning with absolute shame. But here is the absolute crucial takeaway, delivered by Mr. Julian. He didn't pity her. Instead, he just places a gentle hand on her shoulder and offers this massive perspective shift. He tells her, "Maya, the mirror isn't showing your worth. It's simply echoing the words you tell yourself every day. You are the author of those whispers. It wasn't that she was inherently flawed. She'd just been writing a terrible script for herself." And that leads into Section 3, redefining true self-esteem and how we start changing the narrative. Mr. Julian, who clearly knows exactly what he's doing, hands Maya a small piece of chalk. He tells her to go right up to the stone frame of the mirror and write just one truth about herself. And he's specific. It can't be a boast or some crazy perfectionist goal. Just one true, real thing she genuinely appreciates about her own mind. So Maya takes a really deep breath. She actively stops comparing herself to Leo's leadership or Priya's math skills. Instead, she thinks about her own quiet strength, like how she always listens so intensely when her friends are upset, and how she notices the little overlooked beautiful things in everyday life. She reaches out and traces this simple truth on the stone. "I see beauty in things others overlook, and I care deeply." And you guys, the second she finished that last letter, the dim, cold shadows in the mirror completely dissolved. They were instantly replaced by this soft, warm, golden glow that literally lit up the entire room. Mr. Julian uses this exact moment to completely redefine self-esteem for the class. We almost always think of self-esteem as feeling like we're the smartest or the best in the room. But he explains it's actually about realizing you never needed to compare yourself to others in the first place. Your light, your intrinsic worth, grows the exact moment you just stop speaking to yourself like an enemy. It is literally the absence of internal hostility. So how do we actually do this? Let's move to section 4. 5 steps to self-esteem and building your own golden glow. When Maya got home that evening, she finally cracked open that sketchbook and just started drawing. Crooked lines, messy shading, the whole shebang. She finally knew that masterpieces just start with a willingness to try. But how do we achieve that, right? How do we find our own golden glow in the real world? Because let's face it, we all have a mirror of echoes operating inside our heads every single day. So we're going to walk through 5 highly structured, totally practical steps to reshape whatever your internal mirror is reflecting right now. Let's break these down so you can start using them immediately. All right, step 1 is reframing your internal dialogue. You really have to pay close attention to your knee-jerk reaction when you mess up. If you drop the ball on a project and instantly think, "Ugh, I'm terrible at this," you have to stop and reframe it. Making a simple shift to, "I am still learning this skill," changes absolutely everything. And here's a pretty cool psychological trick. Research actually shows that speaking to yourself in the second or third person, like saying, "You've got this," instead of "I've got this," can instantly dial down emotional stress in your brain. The golden rule here is super simple but incredibly strict. If you wouldn't say that harsh phrase to a friend who just made a mistake, you absolutely, unequivocally must not say it to yourself. Moving on to step 2, we really need to talk about where we place our value. Step 2 is track effort, not just outcomes. When we hyper-focus on outcomes, grades, or perfect final results, we fall face first into the perfectionism trap, just like those cracks we saw in Leo's mirror. Instead, you need to actively celebrate the raw time, the energy, and the quiet persistence you actually poured into a task, completely regardless of whether the immediate outcome was a massive success or a total flop. Step 3 tackles the root of Maya's initial pain directly. Stop the comparison trap. We just have to remember that everyone is operating on a totally unique timeline, equipped with totally different strengths. When you compare your messy, raw, behind-the-scenes process to someone else's heavily polished, curated highlight reel, you are playing a rigged game. It is always going to feel unfair. The only valid metric for your growth is measuring your progress against your past self, not the person sitting next to you, just you. Now, step 4 is incredibly powerful and highly actionable. Practice the evidence journal. Look, the human brain has a negative bias. It literally loves to hold on to failures. So force it to see the good. At the end of every single day, write down 3 specific things: your small achievements, any kind acts you did, and your pure moments of effort. This way, when self-doubt inevitably creeps back in, you don't just have to try and think positive. You can actually open this physical record and review hard, written evidence of your capability and your continuous growth. Finally, step 5 is all about controlling your environment. You must set boundaries with negative influences. You could do all the internal work in the world, but if you're constantly in toxic environments or endlessly doom scrolling through social media circles that leave you feeling totally inadequate, your self-esteem is going to erode. You have to actively curate your life. Surround yourself with peers who applaud your effort and go out of your way to find mentors who accept you exactly as you are, while still pushing you to grow. Protect your mental space fiercely. As we wrap up this explainer today, I really want you to keep Maya's profound transformation at that brass frame in the back of your mind. True self-esteem isn't arrogance, it's self-compassion. So take a second right now and seriously ask yourself, if you were handed that piece of chalk today, standing right in front of the mirror of echoes, what true, unboastful thing would you write about your own mind? Find that truth, hold on to it, and please, stop speaking to yourself like an enemy.